Welcome to the Libra Full Moon Forecast. I have Justin back with me today. Welcome back, Justin.
Hey, thanks, Liz. I'm excited to talk about the moon, lunar eclipse.
Yes, so we have the Libra Full Moon Forecast. And Justin's with me here today. And it's a penumbral lunar eclipse, meaning that it just casts a little bit of a shadow.
Yeah.
And to get a hold of Justin, it's justincrocketelzie.com. And his email is justin.elzie@gmail.com. And myself, you can get a hold of me at alightpath.com or liz@alightpath.com. So we have this Libra lunar eclipse full moon, and it's also called the worm moon. Justin, can you tell us how they got the name worm moon?
Well, it's Native American name, and that's where that actually comes from. So that's
Thank
about all I
you.
know. I have to be honest with you. I don't know why they call it a worm moon, but I do know it's a Native American moon. Native Americans, the moons that they named were only full moons, not the new moons, because the way Native Americans saw the moon cycles was not the way we see it, which is the new moon as a start. They saw the full moon as the start of the cycle, or the pinnacle. So that's why they named all the full moons and not new moons.
Thank you. And so the full moon's on March 25th. And here at Pacific time, it's 12 a.m. Eastern time, it's 3 a.m. And the moon will be at 5 degrees Libra in 7 minutes, and the sun will be at 5 degrees. Oh, I made a mistake. The sun's going to be in Aries at 5 degrees in 7 minutes.
Yep.
Right? Okay.
Yep.
And the chart location is for Seattle. And I thought I got all those errors and I missed one. Oh, well, next time I'll get it.
We're thinking Libra. We're thinking Libra here, right?
Yes. So the penumbral lunar eclipse is a reduced brightness. The moon remains illuminated to some degree. The moon passes through a region of Earth's shadow called the penumbra, and it's visible from much of Europe, North and East Asia, North America and South America, the Arctic and Antarctica.
So can I say something about the lunar eclipses, from an Egyptian standpoint? And because I'm sure most of everybody that's going to listen to this has seen a lunar eclipse where the Earth's shadow is projected on the white screen of the moon, right? And in ancient times in Egypt, the lunar eclipses were considered very, I guess, out of all of the whole moon cycles and eclipses, was the most like, it's the one where they did a lot of magic with. The Egyptians in ancient society and ancient civilization were considered the sorcerers, and mysticism. That's the way the Greeks looked at them. Anyway, they used to do some really interesting rituals on lunar eclipse that dealt with magic. And so there's a real dark mysticism associated with lunar eclipses, and of course the Earth sees its shadow. So there's an aspect which we'll talk about when we look at everything from that perspective, that it's a moon where we see things that aren't normally seen, things that are hidden, right, in the Earth's shadow.
Yes, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So can you share the nakshatras with us?
Sure. So normally when we do like a new moon, we just do, because the moon and the sun are in the same lunar mansion in the sky, or nakshatra, we only have one slide. But today we have two slides because they're opposing now. And the sun is informing the moon. It's shining a light on the moon across the cosmos there. So we first look at what lunar mansion the sun is in, that it's coming from, and where it's coming from. So here it's in a portion of the sky. It's called Uttarprapada, and it's in the third section, or pada, and every nakshatra or lunar mansion is broken down to 4 sections. And the star that's in this constellation that the sun is in is called the warrior star. And ruling planet is Saturn, and the symbol is two faces or twins. And the keyword themes here for this is about balance and relationship, and it has a very sharp mind. So I really want to point out to our audience today to really, we're going to come back to, you're going to see this theme later when we look at the saving symbols for the sun and moon. The aspect of relationship is going to come up again. So there's something about how this sun is informing us about relationships. And because the basis above is rain clouds and basis is below, as above so below, this is about growth. And through where we're at right now, of course, this is, close to the spring equinox, so this is a really big period of growth. And this is a god of fertility that's a ruling deity of this lunar mansion for the sun. So on the next slide, we've got the lunar mansion for the moon, and so it is being receptive to the sun's energy. And so the keyword theme, this is called the golden-handed star. I mean, and that the moon is in, it's called Hasta. And Hasta actually in Sanskrit is the word for hand, Hasta. That's why you'll see there's some yoga. The word Hasta actually is seen in the name of some yoga positions or asanas, because there's a hand involved, Hasta. So this is called the golden hand. And the theme here is energetic healing or health. So relationships and healing here. And the ruling planet is the moon. This is the god of inspiration. This is a ruling deity for of course, the symbol is a hand because Hasta means hand. And the as above, so below is the moon is seeking to gain here. And we do know that Jupiter is going through Taurus right now. So there's an element of abundance happening. And this is about obtaining one's desires. And I want to point that out because obtaining one's desires or meeting goals, we're going to see the same thing and healing relationships come up later in the Sabian symbols. So this is really kind of informing what is some deeper meaning to the sun and moon relationship on the full moon.
Thank you. That was really interesting. So we're going to go into the chart a little bit because we're going to go into the Sabian symbols here in a minute. And the ascendant is at 25 Scorpio and circled in purple, or if you were looking at a clock, it's at 9 o'clock. And the midheavens in a dark color, and it's 14 degrees Virgo, and that would be 12 o'clock if you were looking at a clock. And the sun is in light green at 5 degrees Aries, and the moon is at 5 degrees of Libra in orange.
Yeah.
So I found a little quote: just like moons and like suns, with the certainty of tides, just like hope's spring high, still I rise. And that's by Maya Angelou. So we're going to go into the Sabian symbols now and what they are. In 1925, spiritualist medium Elzie Wheeler channeled the Sabian symbols with the assistance of astrologer Mark Edmund Jones. There's one image for each degree of the zodiac, so that you could call them an archetypal image or symbol. So we have the Sabian symbols.
Awesome.
So for the ascendant, do you want to start, Justin?
Sure. So we look at the degree before, the current degree, and then where it's moving towards. So it gives us sort of this element of past, present, future, giving us some context for that particular angle. And so we always go to the ascendant first, because when we recharge, a lot of astrologers look at the ascendant first because that's the point of birth and how we enter in the world. And so where this ascendant's coming from is Scorpio, 24 degrees. And the archetypal symbol here is having heard an inspired individual delivery sermon on the Mount, crowds are returning home. So the keynote to this is the need to incorporate inspiring experiences and teachings into everyday living. So there's going to be this challenge to transformation, meaning incorporating that.
And boy, we've been going through that all year, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
So Scorpio 25 is an X-ray photograph. The capacity to acquire a knowledge of the structural factors in an existence. Structural knowledge. That sounds good.
Yeah, and then where it's moving towards here, Scorpio 26 degrees is American Indians making camp after moving into a new territory. And the keynote here is this ability to adjust swiftly to change or new situations, and by tuning in to its requirements. And so we have the key word here is efficient functioning.
Well, that makes a lot of sense, all those together, the transformation, the structural knowledge, and efficient functioning. I like that.
So this definitely tells that this new moon is about change and how we do have the energy in order to and what we're learning is to basically be flexible and function efficiently since function efficiently, can't say the word, in this challenge to transformation and change right now at this particular time.
Right. And I would say breathe and, be patient.
Yep.
So the Sabian symbols for the midheaven, we have Virgo 13, the degree before or leading up to. A powerful statesman overcomes a state of political hysteria. The focusing of the collective need for order and structural interdependence into a personage who incarnates the answer to this need. Charisma.
Yeah. And then Virgo 14 is an aristocratic family tree. The keynote is a deep reliance upon the ancestral roots of individual character, basically root power.
And then where we're headed to next is Virgo 15, a fine lace handkerchief, an heirloom from ancestors. The quintessence of deeds well done, culture. So it's like, don't forget where we've come from. And sometimes, even though to change is a challenge, it's like be playful and have fun with that, is what I would say.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I find that both the ascendant and the midheaven, these two signs, Scorpio, which is we know it rules death and change and transformation as a normal aspect, and Virgo rules health and improvement and perfecting and improving something. So it's almost like the ascendant saying, okay, yep, here's change is coming, and Virgo is saying, okay, here's how you're going to look at it to improve through this change, possibly. Or that may be one way we could look at this.
Well, that's a great way, I think. So we have Aries, the sun in Aries. So we start out with 4 degrees of Aries, where we've come from, 2 lovers strolling on a secluded walk. The progressive polarization of energies needed for fulfilling one's life function, polarization.
And then Aries 5 degrees, a triangle with wings. You can picture that, a triangle with the wings. The capacity for self-transcending, and the keyword is basically seeing a new dimension, or a new dimension is upon us.
And then where we're headed, Aries 6, a square with one of its sides brightly illumined. The emotional desire for concrete and stabilized existence as a person, a one-sided urge for inner stability.
So what do you think, Liz?
Well, there's a lot about polarization, stability, structure, and we're, transforming all this. So it's like structures or forms that aren't solid, it's like it's time for them to change.
Yeah. And earlier I mentioned about the thing about relationship and balance, and we know that's a very Libra thing, and this polarization, 2 lovers, relationship here stabilizing and bringing some sense of balance or polarization. Polarization is balancing 2 things. That's where I was seeing with the relationship and connection with this.
Okay, and then we're going to go to the Libra moon. Do you want to start this one?
Sure. Libra 4, around a campfire, a group of young people sit in spiritual communion. The keynote is uniting with kindred spirits as one enters unbeaten paths illuminated by one still insecure light of a dawning intuition and new values. Basically, it's called inspiriting, where we have to commune with others of like experience.
I like that. So, Libra 5, a man revealing to his students the foundation of inner knowledge upon which a new world could be built. The necessity for youthful spirits to learn from a teacher who, through his experience, has been able to reach a solid and illuminating truths, such as seeding ideas, transmission.
And then Libra 6, where the moon is taking us here, is a man watches his ideals taking a concrete form before his inner vision. Basically, ideals and goals here. The need to visualize clearly one's dreams or ideals or goals in order to make them truly effectual. So here we have a technique of what we call interior formulation, meaning visualization to accomplish our goals. And this goes back to the point I've asked everybody to remember earlier in the lunar mansion, where it was talking about basically accomplishing a goal or reaching that goal.
Well, I like this because it reminds me of inspiriting could be, like doing some kind of a meditation, and that you receive some information. The transmission is the information that you gain from doing your meditation, and then you're able to formulate something new from that.
Yeah, I agree. This gives us some techniques to, as we go through this period of change when lunar. You're exactly right. Spending time with like-minded souls, and then of course meditation and going inward and interior formulating what our dreams are. I totally agree with you there.
Okay, and then I have here a little bit about the Libra energy. It's a cardinal air sign. It's ruled by Mars, or Venus, sorry. And Venus is in Pisces. So we have the full moon is a time of endings, release, preparation to move forward. And the sun, we're at the full moon, so the sun is opposite that moon. So the sun is more about the ego and the moon's emotions, an opportunity to rebalance those. The cardinal energy is about initiating and beginning things and start things. Venus is about possessions, beauty, and aesthetics. And Libra is cooperative, peaceful, harmonious, justice, and about fairness. Anything to add?
Yeah, something about when we talk about those moon cycles, I know, a lot of times people just pay attention to the new moons and the full moons, but now there's always this interesting thing that happens in the waning cycle between the full moon and the new moon. And as you know, if you get deeper into it, there are points in the last half of the waning gibbous and so on and so forth, where it does talk about that we can still finish completing things before the new moon starts. So definitely the releasing, adjusting, but then there's also a look back to what worked and what didn't work on that. And so the waning, I've always liked the waning portion too, because there's a lot of contemplation and preparing as you're preparing to move forward that I like. That's kind of important. There's really a lot of interesting things in the waning cycle.
Right. It's like, to me, it's like preparing for, the next new moon to come, or the next growth phase.
Right.
It's like a time to, if you need to collect more information or do a little research, that's a really good time to do those things. And
there's a whole process that's deep in there. Yeah.
Okay. A little bit about the chart details. The chart ruler, the ascendant, is ruled by Mars in Pisces and Pluto in Aquarius. The moon's ruler is Venus in Pisces. We have a fan-shaped chart, the moon being the handle. So all the other planets are really focused together, but that moon is kind of out there on her own, so to speak. And, it's a lot about family, safety, security, and nurturing. Anything you'd like to add, Justin?
Yeah, I find this interesting in this chart because out of the 7 major planets here, they're all below the horizon. And the moon is the only one above the horizon as a planet. And so this again kind of leads back to the Nakshatra, which talks about healing. And there's a lot of subjective, since it's all below the horizon, there are a lot of subjective in those first houses of self communications, our thoughts. There's a lot of healing underneath the surface. And so that's what I think, when we think about the moon is the projection screen on which the Earth's shadow is going to be projected. So all the stuff that's below the horizon is going to be shown at this one particular point. So anything that the Mars is informing, or Saturn, or Venus, or Neptune, or Hygeia, Sun, Chiron, Mercury, all of these are going to be, even though they're hidden below the horizon and subjective here, this is a period of time where they actually are showing up on the moon. So I think it really highlights all those planets in the fan that are down below, What do you think?
Well, I like that. And then I like to look at the chart when most of the planets are below the horizon. I call that kind of a pull within and a quiet time. It's like good for meditation, to have a little bit of me time, perhaps. Just don't schedule as heavily if you can. So, and of course, this is for Seattle area, but it would be most of the west coast of the U.S., and it will change a little bit depending on your location. But there could still be a lot of planets below the horizon.
Yeah.
So here we start getting into some of the aspects of this lunar eclipse. We have a trine between the moon and Pluto. The moon's in Libra and Pluto is in Aquarius. So they're kind of working together, and the moon is our emotions and Pluto is basically the underworld or deep within. So like maybe some emotions that you've pushed down, forgotten about, haven't come to awareness, but they could possibly come to awareness at this time. What would you like to say?
Well, thinking about that hidden subjective versus the outer objective here, I agree with you. I totally agree with you. And I would just add that this could be a time when we, because Aquarius normally rules communications in the collective, where we actually evaluate how we're communicating emotionally with others in our relationships with that. So it's easy to heal from those communications and how we're emotionally there. But Pluto's asking for change here.
Yes. And then we have another trine between the sun and Aries and Pallas and Sagittarius. Do you want to speak to that, Justin?
Can I say one more thing about Pluto? So I find this interesting. A lot of astrologers have talked about this, and you and I have talked about this prior, because Aquarius rules communications in the collective. It's sort of and with Pluto going through Aquarius, this affects social media. And I find it interesting here that as our country passes a bill to ban TikTok, a big social media outlet, that a lot of people, I saw some interview today where someone was about ready to cry because she had quit her major job to be a TikTok influencer and make her living on TikTok, and she's breaking down emotionally here. And so that really, to me, is kind of an archetype of what we see here with Pluto going through Aquarius. We're going to see a lot of change in social media and communications, but it's affecting our relationships emotionally now. So I would say that anybody's dealing with, there may be some things that come out on social media with people with these relationships during this lunar eclipse. I just wanted to point that out. I thought that was kind of interesting.
Oh, I'm glad you shared that. They said even if they passed a bill to control it or eliminate it or force them to sell, that it would take years to implement it. So,
did you know India actually banned TikTok?
Oh wow!
A while back, and they went through angst in the country. But then what it did was it really created a free for all, and it actually Instagram and Meta Reels or Facebook Reels stepped into the divide, and it really increased Instagram's business. So there's been a major, very populous country that did ban TikTok, and so there was some articles about how India dealt with that.
Well, maybe there'll be some other social networks that come to the forefront, and
Yeah,
since they're aware of what the issues are, that they'll change it, and maybe something else will take off here in the next after these eclipses.
yeah, Pluto and Aquarius.
Okay, and then that Sun sextile, no, trine to Pallas Athena. Did you want to say anything about that?
Well, I'm just curious what you'll think about this, but I would say to me that just means that in this communications, I love how you've kind of connected it here with this, a little bit of this Pluto with the moon. I think then the other thing that takes place in this communications, emotions, and our relationships is how we're all believing, right? Because Sagittarius rules belief systems. And so we have this, you were talking earlier in one of our prior conversations about polarization. And that's sort of that me Aries a little bit there, a little bit me focused. And it's triangulating Pallas Athena there in Sag, which looks at patterns and belief systems here and philosophies. So I think our belief systems are playing. This is just a really great example archetypically. I have to remember this, how our belief systems are playing into our emotions and our communications in a group. So at this particular time, there may be some things that rise up about polarization of how we have these different belief systems. But at the base of it, we're all trying just to survive on the planet. We all really, at the basis wanted the same thing, which is to survive on this planet. So
Exactly. And that Aries sun, it's like it, wants freedom and space and, movement, and doesn't want to be hemmed in or controlled. So it'll be interesting to see how this all works out or plays out.
yeah,
Okay. And then that Pallas sextiles the moon. So, that moon's interacting with Pluto and Pallas too. So,
yeah,
anything else you wanted to add, or kind of what we said covered it? Or
yeah. I think what you said covered it and summarized it. Yeah,
okay, we'll go to the next slide. So these all kind of came out interesting at drawing them all in. So
yeah,
the dark blue is trines and the sextiles are in the light blue, but we'll start with the trine. So between the Scorpio ascendant and the Neptune Hygeia, we have a trine. So I would say health is and of our physical bodies, because the ascendant represents our physical body, and health will be a big forefront in our minds, so to speak, of like, do I need to exercise a little bit? Do I need to improve my eating habits? Do I need to make a doctor's appointment because I haven't had one for a long time? Those kind of things.
well, you may
Anything?
remember one of the nakshatras was talking about health. So yeah, I think what's interesting is when you see this conjunction of Hygeia with Neptune and Pisces. This does mean, I think, also because the Neptune represents the collective. There's something here about the bigger health of our subconscious, our unconscious, because Neptune and Pisces rules, right? We know the 12th house and the subconscious. So there's something here about our our subconscious, and so I agree. There's a health thing. It's more psychological, possibly here a little bit, maybe. I'm
Right.
thinking.
Maybe it's time to read a new self-help book or get some counseling.
Yeah,
Um, Lots of
and our relationship.
possibilities. Yeah. And then we have Vesta and Gemini, trine Mars and Pisces. So,
What do you think about that one?
Well, I think it's, even though Mars is in a water sign, it's like thinking of the improvements to our home, so to speak, because Vesta, it's the hearth, it's the home, it's the nurturing, and it could be even health again, because it's like, how do we feed ourselves? It's like where we make the food. Maybe it's like going and making home cooked meals more, or adding more home cooked meals into our regular diet instead of eating out so much. But it's like getting energized to, make some changes and move forward.
Yeah. And I would say this is a great example archetype of an artist. This is a really great creative period because Vesta and Aquarius is about communications and the collective around the hearth or the fire. And then we have Mars and Pisces here, which is all about dreams and imagination. So this is a really great aspect for people that have wherever this is showing up, transiting over through their chart. We could see, synastry over their natal chart. We could see a creative aspect here with Pisces and Aquarius here.
Yeah, to me, it reminds me of like, it's like maybe I want to change some colors in my living room. So maybe I want to, get some new colored throw pillows, or, oh, I really want to paint. And it could be an artist painting, a new painting, that a new type of art that they haven't done before. It could be, different media, or, maybe they
Yeah,
were a nature,
creative writing.
right. It
Creative
could
writing.
be anything like that. So, okay.
Yeah.
So we have Juno and Virgo, and Pholus and Ceres in Capricorn. I'm just trying to look at where it's at in here. Oh, Juno's up in that ninth house, and Pholus and Ceres are in the second house. So
Right.
Juno's about relationships, and Ceres is also about harvesting and nurturing. And Pholus is, to me, a turning point. It's like time to make a change. It's kind of like
Yeah.
more, it's like a required action change.
Right, right. I totally agree. And I mentioned this in one of our prior shows because Juno, which was the wife of Jupiter, represents relationship or marriage. And it's been going through Virgo. So wherever it's been transiting our natal charts, if we look at transits, it's where we're looking to improve or perfect relationships. So if it's going through a person's 10th house of career, they're evaluating relationships in their career. If it's going through their health house, they're probably making some changes to their health and or the relationship with their health or their relationships with people and work. And if so it's interesting, it's on the midheaven here. And so this gets back to the whole relationship thing, improving relationships. And then it's training Pholus, which is about in Capricorn, which is about structural change here. So I see some structural changes in the group. We're evaluating some relationships, and because then it's trining Jupiter and Uranus and Taurus here. This is about abundance. Which relationships are bringing us abundance, and which ones are not that we need to change. You know.
Yes, I like that. And Uranus also kind of reinforces, let's make some changes too. So it's kind of like what I call a double signature. It's reinforcing it's time for change, time for a little
Yeah.
change. And
Yeah, I
is it
agree.
just to pay attention and nurture a relationship, or seek counseling, or is it time to end a relationship? That's a big decision. And you don't make
Yeah.
it like, it's like you don't just make it on the spur of the moment most of the time. It's like,
And there could be some fears associated with this too, because we look at it from going the other direction. This could be a person that wants to stay in a relationship because the Taurus brings that there's a sense of safety and security in the Taurus aspect of the relationship and resources. And then because we know a fear can be associated with Capricorn, there can be some fear of some changes in relationships right now, but we just got to lean into it and say, you know what? Change is good at times when it comes to relationships and letting some things go that are not abundant to us.
well, and how these land in the houses here in Seattle, you could say, well, how I make my money, my day-to-day work, and my career and how I'm seen. It's like it's time for a little bit of reevaluation. Do I want to continue in this career for 10 or 15, 20 more years until I can retire? Yes or no? It's like it's a good reevaluation time.
Right, I agree.
And then we have the sextiles in the light blue with the Pholus series to Saturn and Venus and to Jupiter, Uranus. So, and that kind of connects and makes a mini grand trine. So, again, relationships and the structure of them, I would just kind of add that point in. Otherwise, I don't really have much more to add in. What about you?
No, I wouldn't either, no.
So let's see. Oh, we've got some squares, some
I love
cardinal
how you talk about, oh yeah, the squares. Got to talk about those.
We have a cardinal T square. And to me, it's like there's, it's adjustment time and it's change time. And then you could say that this is just one big T square, but I kind of separated it, the ones with the nodes and the ones without the nodes, because some of them, like the moon and the south node are 10 degrees apart, and then the Neptune Hygeia sun to the north node in Chiron, there's quite a little bit of distance there, but they all connect to Pholus and Ceres. So
Yeah, did you notice that the trines, they connected Pholus and Ceres, and now the squares are connected? There's something really important about this conjunction of Pholus and Ceres, and for the crowd that doesn't look at asteroids, Pholus is related to change and death, and when it's in Capricorn, it's about structural change. I actually had a client that has Pholus at 10 degrees right now, sitting right on their Mars in Capricorn in their 10th house of career. And I told the person, actually, it was the person's son. And before knowing anything, I said, "Oh, this guy's going through structural changes in his career." Guess what? I was right. The guy's retiring. Okay, so Pholus is so important. It just shows where there's structural change happening, and I love how it's next to Ceres. I'd be curious how do you see Ceres?
well, I always think of, planting of food or grains and how we, get our sustenance. It's like, and I know I've heard talk, but I haven't heard talk the last few weeks about the farmers in Europe, going on strike because, they don't want to be forced to sell their farms or to produce in a certain way. So maybe how food is growing or produced, because I know that there's a lot of things that they're making now that um, I don't know how they're making it, but they don't grow it on a farm.
Yeah.
So I'm not really sure, but I would say that there's some kind of structural change with that.
Yeah,
Um,
I agree, and I also look at Ceres as kind of how we are nurtured in a group, and with Ceres here being that fertility and growth in a group, it's definitely a point where we're going through structural changes in what nurtures us in groups. And I think that's probably, out of all the data points in this chart, is probably, to me, probably one of the most important points in the charts is this Ceres Pholus, because the trines went to this and now the squares are going to this.
yes, a big focal point, that's for sure. And that north node is still really close to Chiron, even though they're separating, but they're still really close. So, asking for some kind of healing to move forward. It's like, let's move from the past and move forward. Anything else you want to say about this slide?
Yeah, I want to say one word about Chiron. um, you know, I think this is also, there's another word that goes with Chiron. It's called unconventional. And this could be a time, it does, Chiron and Aries, as you know, and we always talk about how it's about the value of self, the Aries ego here, the self-esteem, self-confidence. But I also think that this could be a time when some people are going to be, because it is the North Node, what we're moving towards is taking some unconventional action, um, possibly with change in our relationships.
I agree with that. And it can also be the teacher. So maybe it's time for some of us to step up and start teaching something that we know. Because I've always had the belief that, you could have a room full of 50 people and each person has something to teach to another person because somebody else doesn't know what you know.
Right, absolutely. We all can always learn something. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And maybe it's that we're learning to be more free and not so tied down to certain things that, of how we were raised, of like a belief system, or you work hard and you succeed. Well, sometimes that's not exactly true.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
okay, and then here we have a finger of God, and that's 2 points that are sextile to each other, 60 degrees apart, and then 2 quincunxes to another planet. So we have the quincunxes to the south node, and then the Saturn Venus sextile to the Jupiter, and then the opposite point of that south node is the north node. So the structure around relationships, the Saturn Venus and the Jupiter, it's like, let's maybe expand those a little bit, and maybe how we've dealt with relationships in the past. Now it's time to find a new creative, different way that we wouldn't have thought of yesterday or last year or 5 years ago.
Yeah. Cool.
And then we have some squares here. We have the ascendant square Mars, which Mars is the chart ruler. So it's, kind of asking us to make some changes. And I always think of Mars as wanting to exercise. I don't know why, but I just do. So it's like maybe, and it's in a water sign, so maybe it would want to swim, but, but, but it's to that ascendant, the first house. So it's like our bodies, like it's time to make some changes with our bodies, perhaps.
Right.
Do you want to say anything on that one, or go to
No. Go ahead. I think you're on a roll here.
Okay. And then Pallas is square to the Saturn Venus. So kind of if you needed counseling, or finding a new structure using your wisdom, um, don't give up on that. Or if you need counseling, go for that. Anything else you want to add?
No.
And then Vesta is square to the Neptune Hygeia. So it feels creative, but it also involves health. So
Right.
Maybe being more creative will improve your health. I don't know.
Yeah, that
Anything's
sounds good.
possible. Yeah,
That
well,
sounds good.
it
Yeah.
could improve your mental health. It's like, even if you didn't have money to take art classes or something, you can always go to the dollar store, even though it's more than $1 now, but it's reasonable. You can buy a box of crayons and a coloring book, and that's being creative.
Right. Absolutely.
And that completes all of our aspects and everything.
That's
Do
the
you have
beautiful
anything
part
else
again.
to say about the lunar eclipse, the Libra full moon?
No, not really. I think we really covered it pretty heavily.
Okay. I'm going to just briefly talk about the lunar phase family. So if you went back to September of 2022, that's when this lunar phase family began, and it's in each phase for 9 months, and we're at the full moon phase. So if you started some projects back then, you could be, presenting a product, or making some advancement, or launching it perhaps. And then at the third quarter, that's where you make an adjustment. So that's in December of 2024. But that's an important phase. We have all kinds of phases. And then we have
Mm-hmm.
the yearly lunar phase. and it began on October 14th of 2023 at 21 degrees Libra. And now we're at the full moon phase. So if you started some new projects in October, you may be, making big headway on them at this point. And of course, we do the monthly lunar phases also, from new moon to full moon to new moon. So we have a few upcoming episodes. The astrology forecast for April 2024. Then Justin and I will be on archetypal symbols on Talk Cosmos, the Aries new moon on April 2nd. And that's on YouTube, also on the Talk Cosmos channel at 1 p.m. Pacific time. And then the monthly show, Astrology Star Sisters Talk Over Tea, and the topic will be Uranus-Jupiter conjunction. And then we have World Astrology Day. Justin, would you like to talk about that?
Sure. So this coming week on the spring equinox, and every year on the spring equinox is what's called World Astrology Day. And this year there's a big event happening online. So you can join from anywhere. It's online, and it's with East West Bookshop in Seattle is partnering with Talk Cosmos, and there's going to be an 18 astrologers talking about World Astrology Day and healing approaches to astrology in 2024. Since we're living in such a chaotic world, how can we use astrology to heal and to bring balance and stability in our lives, as we saw in the Sabian symbols for this new moon? And Denny Luna and Sue Minahan will be the co-hosts for the show, and it's relatively it's only $25, and you get a recording, and you get to hear 18 really great astrologers, and Liz and myself will be on the show. So tune in, get out to East West Book Shop website, and register for it, and you'll get a recording, or if you can't make it, but you'll at least be able to get a recording, or you can join live and ask astrologers questions.
And you can register at eastwestseattle.org.
Yep.
So here is Justin and myself's contact information: JustinCrockettLZ.com, and mine is alightpath.com. And we thank you for being with us again, and we look forward to seeing you on future shows. And if you have questions or comments, please leave them below and like our channel, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. Any last statement?
No, thank you, Liz, for a great show.
Well, thank you for coming.